What did you study this week in your classes? Accounting, mens rea, pulmonary heart disease? We studied selfies. Not only that, but we made a 20-minute podcast about it in a way that's not entirely irreverent. Yes, this podcast is in fact both an educational and practice resource for students at Charles Sturt University. I'm Ruby Pillen, and today you'll be learning everything you never wanted to know about selfies. Welcome to Digital Society.
The topic of the modern selfie, as serious and academically inclined as it is, seems as ubiquitous as any other digital development of the modern age. Further, while highly reflective of the deeper pathos behind taking a picture of yourself, Topic 5 of envisioning the digital society seems to brush over the real-world history that this practice might involve. I feel it possible that uncovering this history may assist in finding deeper meanings behind the selfie, and in the process creating a complete and holistic understanding of the practice. To acquire a definitive origin story for the selfie, we travelled to Japan, circa 1983, to see the release of the Minolta Disc 7 camera. This diminutive handheld film camera featured a convex lens and an extendable telescopic stick attached to its underside in advertisement. Yes, the first ever selfie stick. The Minolta Disc 7 amalgamated two different phenomena of the time. First was Japanese kawaii culture, which at the time involved obsession with self-beautification among Japanese teens and young adults, generally in photography. Second was the classic self-portraiture as a practice, which hitherto was the practice of enterprising elderly Americans with cameras, but could now be utilised by self-referential Japanese youth to great effect. This invention triggered a slew of similar devices, from early Purakura photo booths for the monetization of said kawaii culture, to Game Boy cameras for young children, to even the first handheld smartphone cameras. However, selfies as a practice are generally considered to have not spread outside East Asian countries en masse until after the year 2000, following the creation of the social networking site MySpace. MySpace was the first port of call for selfie culture in Western countries, but was also the site of some of their small-scale cultural ebbs and flows. According to one Kate Loss writing for The New Yorker, when Facebook launched in 2004, it triggered a revolution against the selfie as a practice. In the case of MySpace, a selfie was an amateurish mirror picture, usually with obnoxious flash flare and off-putting filters. Users of Facebook, reveling in its professional layout and clean profile templates, began to reject such immature depictions. Even as platforms like Instagram and Snapchat slowly began to bring selfies back into the mainstream lens, I believe this dogma may have contributed to the turbulent rises and falls in acceptance that selfies seem to have experienced over time, especially given that Facebook remains such a dominant social media platform even today. This is the point where I feel some personal reflection is necessary. Here I choose to put aside celebrity group selfies at the Academy Awards or legal battles over pictures taken by monkeys and speak personally. I view the concept of a selfie as a natural progression of human technology related to our self-image as much as a mirror, or the canvas of a painting, or red ochre to draw on cave walls with. However, because selfies have become so ingrained with our modern digital society, roll credits, it is far more susceptible to analysis and criticism as only the internet can produce, particularly as a phenomenon productive of narcissism, fetishization, and general ignorance of the world around us in favour of ourselves. I'm not here to appraise or reject any of these viewpoints, but instead to present the history of the selfie, from their origins in cultural self-reference to their inextricable role in digital society, as being integral to discovering their deeper meaning.
Which social media do you think shows yourself better when you use it? One celebrity uses two platforms, Twitter and Instagram, and the mood is quite different. The profile picture of him on Instagram is a fancy part of him in the magazine, The Photo Booth. On Twitter is a ridiculous figure caught him running anywhere. Can you feel any difference between the two platforms here? I'm Luna. Today, I'm going to introduce the characteristics of selfies that Instagram and Twitter on this podcast. Let's take a closer look at each platform's features. What is the biggest feature of Twitter? Above all, it is a text-oriented SNS. On the other hand, Instagram is an image-oriented SNS. However, Instagram and YouTube also contain text, so you may feel that there is not much difference between Twitter and Instagram. Shall we check this through the layout first? When marketing brands using Twitter and Instagram, images account for a much larger proportion of both platforms, and the text is very short. But Twitter shows text first, and Instagram shows images first. Also, Twitter is a text-oriented medium, so it has its own grammar. It is a short platform limited to 140 characters, so it expresses the unique personality of the brand by characterizing it. In other words, it is good at catching the flow of messages in a funny and trendy way. On the contrary, Instagram has a form of images suitable for uploading. So companies make car news based on images or apply the composition and color that Instagram pursues. As the two platforms have different characteristics, the way images are shared is also different. Twitter has a real-time trend. The higher the ranking in the real-time trend, the more posts are shown and spread to people. Instagram has a new type of post called story. Posts posted to a story don't go down in the feed, but disappear after a certain period of time. So if you see more than 3 similar posts in the story that day, you can see that it's a trend. Did the characteristics of these two platforms also apply to the psychology of people posting selfies that act as personas that reveal themselves? Let's begin with Instagram. Owned by Facebook, Instagram is like younger, trendier sister. This is where influencers and brands can grow a loyal following. They see higher engagement on Instagram than they do on Facebook. People who want to reveal themselves on that potential platform Instagram also want to be represented as potential people. So any individual selfie that you can see on Instagram is a means of recognizing yourself as a trendy person. How about Twitter? I think you might want to ask, what makes Twitter so funny? The answer is, Twitter is a chat room. And as anyone who's familiar with the internet knows, chat rooms are objectively funny. And I'd argue that the main thing we do on this website is make fun of each other. User interaction on Twitter is a completely separate culture. Whereas on Instagram, 2 likes are nothing, on Twitter, 2 likes make for decent interaction. So what about the selfie that you want to represent on Twitter? It works the same as the platform you share with your friends, but it has a wide range and should work as a sympathetic material to talk to each other, not as a means to get attention. It's simple. I on Instagram will be I with a material that someone might want to imitate that reveals cool and visual elements. Me on Twitter will be me between you and me, that is me with trivial and relatable content. On which platform do you prefer me? Or did you become interested or rather antagonistic to a platform that you've never used before? What will happen in the future? Which me do people focus more on? Today, I briefly talked about myself on Twitter and Instagram. Wasn't it time to wonder what other platforms have? I hope all of you will have an opportunity to look into yourself on that platform and modify or develop that function further. I hope to see you on the next podcast. It was Luna. Have a good me discovery time.
The selfie and its invention is something that is quite widely debated on the internet. Claims of who took the first are extensive and varied. Many argue that American photographer Robert Cornelius took the first selfie in 1839 when he captured a daguerreotype self-portrait. Others claim that the selfie was invented much later in 2001, when a group of young Australians uploaded their selfies from a night out onto a blog. However, it was in September of 2002 when the first published use of the word selfie was seen on an internet forum called ABC Online. The quote reads as follows.
Drunk at a mate's 21st, I tripped over and landed lip first, with front teeth coming a very close second on a set of steps. Had a hole about a centimetre long right through my bottom lip. Oh, and sorry about the focus, it was a selfie.
While the question of who actually took the first selfie is debatable, one thing that most people can agree on is that it was the invention of the modern mobile phone that has truly allowed for selfies to flourish as a form of self-representation. Though, with the ability to adjust angles, lighting, and retouch the photo after the fact, it does beg the question, how real is the self that is being represented? Hi, I'm Ruby Pillen. I'm one of your student hosts today, and in my short segment, I'm going to be discussing the way that the selfie persona is affecting the sense of self in young adults. Selfies and the content that we present as ourselves online can actually be a rather warped representation of who we are, even if we don't intend it to be. Take my own Instagram, for example. While I don't edit my pictures heavily, nor do I spend specific days shooting photos for it, it is heavily curated. The photos that are seen are ones of me having fun with friends and family. What isn't shown is the hours I spend at work, nor the time I spend doing assessments in front of the TV. If someone were to look at that without knowing me, they would walk away with a disconnected idea of who I am. They wouldn't see my bad hair days, my stressful late mornings, and my accidental naps. I'm not saying that this curation is necessarily a bad thing. Believe me. What I am saying, however, is that it's getting harder and harder to separate this notion of an online persona with actual personality. The absence of clear boundaries between online personas and real-life identities is creating several significant challenges for teenagers and young adults. While the carefully curated images and impressions presented online may appear genuine, they are simply just fragments of a life. This often means that teens that view these online identities may develop unrealistic expectations about their own lives, which then consequently lead to feelings of low self-esteem. Similarly, it can also cause people to try and emulate these personas, which in and of itself is just an exhausting task. Could we all just stop for a moment and try to imagine how tiring it would be to only allow half of yourself online, to never fully be you, never be the person that you are? The creation and maintenance of online personas is proven to be an overwhelming task that consistently ends in angst and anxiety for teens and young adults.
I don't know about this one. The lighting isn't just quite right, but I guess it'll have to do.
Are you sure you want to post it from that angle? Really? Maybe you should take another. Did you even do your makeup? Put on another filter. Another photo alone? Maybe you should blur that pimple. Your hair's looking a little bit greasy today. The lighting is horrendous. Yours looks nothing like hers. These are the exhausting and strenuous thoughts that are taking up so much mind space in young adults at the moment. This is the kind of spiraling that posting a simple selfie can cause. It should be noted that yes, the selfie did not create online personas on its own. There have been many contributing factors, but the selfie as an editable form of self-representation has certainly played its part. I'm not saying that the solution is to stop posting selfies or to stop curating your Instagram, but I do think that we as a society need to become more aware of the selective nature of online personas. Once you become aware that not everything you see on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat is entirely true, it becomes a lot easier to manage your own reaction to what you see. It also allows you to have a bit more fun with your persona. Selfies are inherently reflections of yourself, but they're also a creative medium that you can have some fun with. Once the need to fit into a certain persona, a certain identity starts to fade, selfies are a great way of expressing your personality, and they can become a fantastic way of documenting who you are. Consider taking selfies with things and people you love, drawing over the top of them, making them like a scrapbook. When you remove the need to be perfect from selfies, they actually become a much clearer reflection of who you are. So, keep taking photos, and if you only want to post the best ones, then do that. But remember, this is what we're all doing. These are just the personas that we are all presenting. Thank you so much for listening to my segment today. I'm Ruby Pillen, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Ugh, no, I need to take more. Oh my god, why does my left cheekbone protrude out like that? Finally, these ones are perfect. And upload. The selfie. Taken at the right angle, in the right light, with the right expression, not weirdly lit, from an awkward angle and snorting at a joke like the photos that other people take of us. No, the selfie is instead carefully composed. While some see selfies as a creative outlet and a way to connect with other people, others see them as narcissistic, self-promotional, and inauthentic. One could argue that the nature of a selfie, a photo deliberately taken of oneself by oneself, means that selfies can never be an authentic glimpse into someone's life. But what if we discussed the new type of selfie, one that arguably stands in contrast to the traditional front-facing selfie that floods our socials? It consists of an arm that looks weirdly long, buggy eyes that peer up at the camera, legs for days, and tiny bodies. And it's called the 0.5 selfie. And what I want to find out in this podcast is the 0.5 selfie a more authentic way of presenting ourselves online? Wherever Gen Z gathers these days, a 0.5 selfie is almost bound to be taken. 0.5 selfies are showing up on Instagram, proliferating in group chats, and becoming the talk of social events. Unlike the traditional selfie, which people can endlessly prepare and pose for, the 0.5 selfie has become popular because it seems far from curated. Users simply tap the 0.5 setting on their smartphone camera to toggle to ultra-wide mode, which is built into the back cameras of phones. So people cannot watch themselves take a 0.5 selfie, creating random images that convey the whimsy of distortion. Portrait photographer Drew Forsyth explains that the reason different parts of your body look bigger and smaller in this setting is because of something called barrel distortion, where what the lens sees is wider than what the sensor on the phone sees. Posting these wacky type photos on social media is meant to be silly, making it seem like the photographers take themselves and social media less seriously. If we look back at the Digital Society topic content where David Marshall addresses the digital persona, he explains that this term can be used to describe the remaking of ourselves through social media structures and presentation. It identifies that we are engaged in a digital performance of ourselves that is related to who we really are, but is specifically curated for public display. Ironically, the 0.5 selfie attempts to juxtapose this topic's digital persona notion by moving away from curation and instead celebrating imperfection online. In a journal article attached in the topic content titled, "Aren't those just young, rich women doing vain things online?" Professor Albidden further explains that influencers labor over purposefully staged images to portray a particular persona and lifestyle aesthetic. However, recently, largely due to the 0.5 selfie, influencers and celebrities are beginning to embrace the anti-perfect content. Let's have a look at singer-songwriter Olivia Rodrigo. Her wildly distorted 0.5 selfies got 3 million likes on Instagram. Celebrities are shaking up the social media playground into a more carefree, effortless, and authentic scene. At least that's what the aesthetic is leading us to believe. Where it does take a slightly sinister turn is the recognition of how perfectly imperfect these selfies are, ultimately reducing their spontaneous nature and revealing a hidden layer of manufactured authenticity. We've somehow fallen into a culture of trying to curate candidness and a couldn't care less attitude. And after speaking with a Gen Z selfie taker, I realized 0.5 selfies are probably less organic than we might think.
Taking a 0.5 selfie is hard. Because of the back camera, angling and physical manoeuvring are a must. If selfie takers want to fit everybody into a frame, they have to stretch their arms out as far out and up as possible. If they want to maximise how much a face distorts, they have to perch their phone onto an angle to their forehead and right at their hairline.
The effort to cultivate a carefree vibe ultimately destabilizes the idea that Gen Z cares less about their perceived digital persona. The reality is, selfies, no matter how curated or spontaneous, indicate some level of inauthenticity online. Personally, I'm still a fan of the 0.5 selfie. Selfies have always been a staple within Instagram culture, producing trends which have lasted for years, and if people are trying to just make them more interesting to look at, who am I to complain?
Self-portraiture is not a new phenomenon. The art of self-expression goes back centuries when people used different art forms as an opportunity to depict themselves as the main subject. Even our primitive ancestors created cave paintings as an intentional depiction of oneself. In the 1910s, the young daughter of the last Russian Tsar took the first self-portraits that resemble modern-day selfies. In her images, you can see the camera or arms connecting herself as the subject to the camera. This evidence of how it was made are hallmarks of the modern-day selfie. She sent these images to friends to share her mood and daily life. She pioneered the use of photography as a social behaviour and form of communication and not just commemoration. But it would be decades before this use of photography would be made commonplace with the advancement of technology. The popularisation of instant cameras in the 1960s and 70s made taking selfies easier, but it had not yet become a social sharing activity. Film photography had dominated the last century, but the introduction of digital technologies would create a breakthrough in photography where, for the first time, people could carry a camera anywhere and take endless photos of anything, essentially for free. The introduction of flip phones and webcams in the 2000s created a boom in digital photography, and although it may seem primitive by the standards of today's digital era, this was a groundbreaking cultural shift. After the new millennium began the Bronze Age of social media. This is when we started seeing the first kind of selfies we know today, with MySpace users presenting themselves to an audience with selfie profile pictures. It was only in 2010 that the selfie phenomenon boomed in the digital era, after Apple's iPhone release featured a front-facing camera and the emergence of interconnected social media platforms for photo sharing, including Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. 24-hour connectivity, digital and mobile technology turned millions of self-portraits into selfies. Social media has become increasingly pervasive in our lives, and so the incentive for creating self-portraits has completely changed. The selfie signifies a sense of human agency, but unlike older forms of self-portraiture, selfies are created, displayed, distributed, tracked, and monetized by non-human agents. It becomes a part of the digital infrastructure that outlives the time and place that it was originally produced. Representing the complexity of self in one image, which can stay online forever, creates more pressure to get it right. In the moment of taking a selfie, we are already envisioning an audience that we seek to form a particular impression on. It is a very deliberate act of self-presentation, a social self-promotion tool, and a staged performance. Selfies allow people to actively control the image they want to project by curating a perfect profile of carefully selected photos that could be filtered and edited. The main motive for sharing a selfie is for others to see and validate our positive self-image. Garnering many likes and affirming comments makes us feel accepted and valued, boosting our self-esteem. But as selfies became ubiquitous, dramatic critiques of selfies became ubiquitous too. Users could now observe millions of people's selfies and so developed the tendency for unhealthy social comparison. Too much selfie taking is critiqued for being an obnoxious act linked to harmful mental states such as narcissism, body dysmorphia, or even psychosis. Selfies have even been blamed for accidents caused by a preoccupation with the camera over one's surroundings. Selfie culture has also been blamed for the destruction of nature at picturesque tourist hotspots by people in the search of a perfect selfie backdrop, exploited for the sake of social media. Selfies have become a revolutionary form of communication for reinventing the self, gaining appreciation and boosting our self-concept. But like all life's pleasures, when taken to extreme, it can drive people to self-obsession.
We have always had a narcissistic need to be seen and to be connected. Throughout our history, from monuments and sculptures to painted portraits and photo albums filled with memories and milestones, We always relied on a second or third party to create these, until the selfie. The selfie is a perfect example of how we present ourselves and the way we connect to others online by creating and editing our images. The selfie is a worldwide phenomenon that began with the introduction of the first front-facing camera in 2003. 1 million selfies are uploaded daily onto social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. But what is this need for the perfect selfie doing to us and our next generation? Young women between 10 and 30 are at most risk of body image issues, mental health issues, and lower self-esteem. This is because they are the largest producers of selfies on social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. They are constantly bombarded with perfectly edited images of celebrities, influencers, and people they follow, such as Kim Kardashian, leading to unhealthy relationships between the way they look in edited selfies and the way they look in real life. According to Dove's self-esteem research project, 52% of girls use filters every day, and 80% of girls have used filters by the age of 13, while 67% try to change or hide at least one body part or feature before posting a selfie. With every scroll on a social media site, 4 out of 5 girls compare themselves to this unrealistic perfection, leading to the once fun and creative experience of taking a selfie to become an obligation. On average, girls take 14 images to get the perfect image through filters such as face shaping, lighting, softeners, makeup, and fillers. And the longer they spend editing, the lower their self-esteem becomes. 62% of 10 to 17-year-olds wish the world would care more about who they are than what they looked like. Some people, more commonly young women, who do not fit into this perfect idealization of the selfie, go as far as over-sexualizing themselves through provocative clothing and large amounts of makeup to meet what they believe is the desired norm on social media. And this leads them to get more comments and likes, usually from the undesirable people, which then leads them to have a more unhealthy relationship with their own body. This can be seen by 60% of girls feeling upset when their real appearance doesn't match their online appearance, and 50% believe they don't look good enough without filters. This can also lead to an increase in anxiousness, less confidence, and the feeling of being less physically attractive than those who don't create selfies. The need for the perfect selfie is a narcissistic need to meet and conform to popular norms that are showcased through the media and all over social media sites. This has led to increased mental health issues, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and low self-esteem. Things need to change. To help future generations move away from unrealistic perfectionism and move towards more body-positive talk and images, such as those that the Dove Self-Esteem Project is advocating through its educational packs for parents and schools. While they also show selfies in reverse to show just how much these filters are unrealistically changing us.
And now you know. Thanks to all of the contributors and guests who have made this season everything it could have possibly been and more. And thank you, of course, to all of our listeners for tuning in and enjoying our show. I'm Flynn McGee, and that was Digital Society.